Well, CBS 2 is committed to breaking the stigma around mental health, and today we talk about the need for more therapists of color. According to the American Psychological Association, as of 2021, 80% of the psychology workforce is white, 7% is Hispanic, 5% Black, and 3% Asian. Joining me now to talk about the issue is Dr. Pierre Arti, the Chief Psychiatric Officer for Housing Works, and Mr. Mario Pissarro, Chief Clinical Officer at El Saro Counseling Services. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. Now, why do you think there are so few therapists of color? Starting with you, Dr. Arti.
Well, thank you for that question. I happen to be a psychiatrist, and the issues involving psychiatric providers, along with therapists, are very similar. And this is a national problem. So according to a recent NAMI article, in 2019, 40% of the U.S. population identified with a racial or ethnic group that was other than white. People of color already comprise a large percentage of our country's population, and the numbers are growing. So I understand that more people of color are entering the mental health workforce than ever before, but we need more numbers to accurately reflect the changing demographics of our country. It is a multifaceted issue having to do with several things. One, people of color having higher rates of experiencing adverse mental health outcomes. Two, they having less access to quality and sensitive mental health care. And three, there is stigma and cultural issues in communities of color involving mental illness. So those are some of the issues involved with this question.
And Mr. Pissarro, how do you feel about that? Why you think there's so few therapists of color, and also why it's important for more people of color to get into the psychology workforce?
Well, I think I agree with Dr. Arti fully, and the first obstacle is the socioeconomic. A lot of minorities are struggling with the socioeconomic issue. And research shows that around 29% of low-income people enroll in college, and only 9% finish college out of that low income, compared to 80% of the white population. On top of that is the bias structure of the standardized tests, which, research also shows that 80% of the white applicants pass the test on the first time. Meanwhile, minorities, only 50 to 60% pass the test on the first time.
Dr. Arti, if someone is thinking of seeking a therapist of color, what are some of the questions to ask? And also, where can we find them if someone doesn't know where to look? Well,
just to answer the first question, when someone is going in for therapy, for treatment, I think one of the most important questions to ask is, you know what? One of the most important things to do is to ask your friends. Ask friends who are in treatment, who they have, and, do they trust this individual? How is the relationship? Is it a good one? Would they recommend this individual? Because I think word of mouth is very, very important as far as good things that are taking place in someone's care. Another thing is that very important is you can ask the therapist or the psychiatric provider, are they familiar with the issue that the person is coming into the office with? How experienced are they with dealing with whatever the issue may be? I think that's a fair question. How comfortable would they be in dealing with a particular issue? You can also ask in terms of the type of therapy. There are several types of therapies that are available out there, from cognitive behavioral therapy to supportive psychotherapy to dynamic therapy, and each one has their own nuances, differences. So I think the person would need to be comfortable with what the therapist is bringing to the table and what they would like. So hopefully the match will be great as far as the need, as far as what services can be provided.
Dr. Arti and Mr. Pissarro, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Of course, thank you.
And stay with CBS 2 and CBS News New York as we continue to break the stigma surrounding mental health. For a list of resources and a look at our past stories, head to cbsnewyork.com. We'll be right back.